Welcome to Ready to Launch, the series where entrepreneurs and side hustlers share their behind-the-scenes stories about how they got started and how they've managed the transitions in establishing, sustaining, and growing their businesses even in difficult times. In this series, I interview inspiring men and women who are models for anyone who's ready to launch an entrepreneurial initiative or passion project. From their stories, we learn how to be bold and execute on our business and life goals. So you're in the right place if you're ready to dream a bigger dream, have greater impact, and live a more fulfilled life. This is Ready to Launch, and I am your host, Fatima Williams. Thank you so much for being here. I am talking to Ninotchka Ruiz-Johnson, who is the founder of Top Notch by Design. I'm so excited to have you here today. We met a few years ago, and to have you in this community talking to aspiring and new business owners about how you got started and how you built is just, it's an amazing moment for me. I really admire you and your work. So thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm so excited. I've never done one of these, so we'll see how this goes.
I know this is fun. It's a fun experiment for both of us. So I'm going to jump in. Let me give the audience just a little bit of background on you, and we'll fill in as we go throughout. But Top Notch by Design is a line of handmade accessories, bags, and other kinds of fun stuff for moms, women, kids, babies. But the unique piece of it is like the edginess and the flair that you bring to it, right? The prints, the patterns, that the bags are made, and the wallets, the change purses, everything that you do. You've got a lot of product. So one place where people would see you often and with your products is going to be like conventions and conferences. You were recently at the Philly Wizard World Comic Con, also Chicago Wizard World Comic Con, Heroes and Villains Fan Fest, and just earlier this week, like somewhere else. You're everywhere. Your products are everywhere. So I want to get to some of that beginning, like how you got started. And so my first question here really is, take me back to the moment when you got the idea that, you know what, I'm sitting in my job, kind of okay with what I'm doing, but I've got this other idea I really want to get off the ground. Tell us about that moment.
I wish it was like that for me. It wasn't. I'm not one. I know a lot of, because I've gone to a lot of like entrepreneurial kind of gatherings and a lot of these conventions. Like when all of a sudden I realized it was a business, I wanted to do it justice. So I started going to a lot of those things. And I feel like everybody had that like epiphany moment where they were like, I know that now is the time, or I have this great idea and I want to do that. And, you know, my brother is doing a startup and he just had that whole, like, I'm tired of seeing everybody else do it, I want to do it kind of a moment. And then all of a sudden it was like a light switch, and then they took off running. My business started very super organic. So I had a friend that was doing quilt groups, and everybody in the quilt group was like 70 plus years old, and she gave me a sewing machine. And I didn't know how to use it, but she was trying to suck her into kind of going that route with her. So she had a friend that wasn't grandma age to go to these things with. And I got the sewing machine, and I sat down and I decided that I was going to totally learn how to do it. And off of YouTube and text messages from her, I taught myself how to use that machine that weekend.
Oh my God.
I realized instantly I hated quilting, like instantly. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to make myself a bag for work. And I made a bag and I brought it into work the next week. And I wasn't from a pattern. I just sort of like sewed it together, and it was cockeyed and crooked because I didn't know how to use the machine. I'd never sewn anything before. And I went into work, and a coworker was like, where did you get the bag? I'm like, I made it. And she was like, well, I want one. I was like, well, I made two. They're equally as crooked. If you would like one, you're more than welcome.
I love it.
I gave it to her. She gave me $20, told me to go buy more fabric. And then next thing you know, the following week, people are like, well, we saw Miss Angela with her bag. We want one. And I was like, really? So every weekend I would sew one or two, because if not, they would dump all of my stuff out of my bag, put it in a little Acme bag, and they would steal my bag, and I would end up with all my stuff in like a grocery shopper. So it turned into every weekend I was sewing, and then it was like during the week I would start sewing, and then the next day, next thing you knew, I was sewing like, 5, 6, 7 days a week. And yeah, so I learned how to sew on YouTube, the power of the internet. Who would have thought? And now, Yeah, I didn't even name my business. One of my best friends bought me my domain name and my first website for my birthday and said, whether you believe it or not, you have a business. I used to sell them out of a bag in my car. So I never had that moment where I was like, you know what, I want to start this business. It was like all of a sudden it was this business and it was selling and things were going and I was like chasing after it. So it was this very, very organic sort of, and before I knew it, it was turning into something that I had not planned.
So, having now knowing this, I feel like my questions, the order of my questions is like going to be totally all right? Off.
I have no idea what I'm doing.
No, but you know what I'm so intrigued by with this is because you had the fuel to get started, right? So you had people behind you saying, I believe in you. You had that fuel behind you to get started, but you're in a very different position right now. I mean, truly, like the conferences that you're going to and conventions that you're going to, this isn't like just for play and for fun. Like,
and it's changed. We're talking 11 years ago now. So that's how it started, but it's been 11 years of hard work. Like this, it was really the first year or two that I was like, oh, I'm just making them for fun. After that, when I started to realize what it was doing, all of a sudden it clicked that this was going to be something. And
what do you mean though when you said you realized what it was doing? Like what was it doing for you that gave you the fuel to say, you know what, I'm going to take this seriously and perfect like my entrepreneurship around this?
The fact that the demand was there before we even realized it was officially a product. When does that happen in retail ever? So I couldn't have planned it and it worked out this way. If I had all of a sudden said, I'm going to map this out and do this, it wouldn't have turned out the way that it did. But all of a sudden it turned into, that's when I first got my first, we're talking 11 years now. So it was when I first had my Facebook page. So you didn't have like a business page and then your page. So it was like, I would just put pictures up because word of mouth was carrying. So they're like, oh, I told my friend about this and they want to see what you have. What do you have? And I'm like, I had no idea. I didn't have a website. You didn't have a store. I had no intention of doing this as a business. How was I going to get my products out there for the word of mouth customer to kind of like see it? And I wasn't even seeing it as customers. I'm like, okay, well, these people keep calling me every week wanting to know what I have. And I have no way of showing that to them. They're asking for a catalog. So I started one album on my personal Facebook page that was just pictures of bags that I had made with like pricing. And it has, in the last, I don't know how many years, morphed into this whole thing that my business is almost solely based out of Facebook now.
Okay, so take me through some of these shifts because I've seen that you have your bus, right? Bus and boutique.
I do.
And I think it was it last year that you started with the brick and mortar? In New Jersey.
Almost exactly a year right now.
Yeah. So take me through, again, remember we're talking to like new entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs. Take me through how you made these shifts to say, I'm going to invest in a bus. I'm going to invest in space. Like what were those shifts like that made you kind of move in those directions in your business?
I also, I don't know if we touched on it, but I still have a full-time day job. So still to this day, I'm still juggling a full-time day job. The reason I'm bringing it up now is it kind of gives, we always refer to the business as Switzerland. So it's this own little thing, and my family doesn't depend on it. I don't rely on this. So whatever this does, whether it is amazing and skyrockets or it bottoms out, it doesn't affect the life that my family and I have made. It's totally separate. Now, the reason I'm bringing that up is because another thing that it does is it gives me the ability to be able to do things because I think they're cool and because I'm inspired and I think that it's fun. And so as hard as it is, everybody always gauges the fact that, when they see, oh my God, your business is doing so great online, when are you going to quit the day job? For me, it's that almost that like security blanket or that, that net that's going to catch me where I'm like, you know what, I can do this because it's awesome. And when I had my bus, the bus now is 3.5 years old. Now they're really popular. Back then, nobody had a fashion bus. So when I did it, everybody looked at me like I was crazy. And it started from a joke. I was so tired of loading and unloading all of the merchandise and all of the displays and everything for these conventions. I made a joke to my brother that said, I'm going to get a van and I'm going to load everything into this van, and it's going to be like movable storage. That way I don't have to pack it and unpack it. I'll only take the bags out. And I'm like, I wonder how big it has to be so that people could just go on and shop and I don't even have to unload the bags. 20 minutes later, my brother sent me Craigslist, a bunch of buses. My husband came home. I said, what do you think about converting a bus into a storefront? And he said, what were you thinking as far as walls? Like he didn't even flinch. Mm-hmm. And that night we were looking at buses. It went from conception of an idea, which was a joke, to a bus in my driveway in 6 days. There wasn't like any of that, like, it was like, oh, this would be awesome. And you know what? Let's do it. And nobody flinched. And I have a super great support system that is all like, oh, well, you want to do that? That can't be done. But all right, let's go. So it really has helped every single step that I've taken, that I've been able to, feel inspired and love what I'm doing and just think it's more than just bags at this point. If you follow me online, it's this community of really amazing people that are friends out of there now, and they support each other. And it's really easy to get wrapped up into how awesome this is and be so inspired about it that you just want to do these really cool things, so.
Wow. This is amazing. So, okay. When you started, you weren't, let's say, intentional about starting a business, right? But as you've grown, I imagine you've needed more resources. Like you had to buy the bus, right? You had to wrap the bus, and wrapping means, have it like in your logo and in your colors. And so tell me about how you got resources along the way to continue to grow the business.
The business was actually officially started with $200. So I took $200 out of my personal bank account and I went and bought supplies. And from that point on, I've never touched my personal finances since. So I paid it back, and from then I kind of grew organically how my business was dictating. So I kind of I said, you know what, this started this way, so I'm going to take that lead, and I'm going to grow with the speed that my business is showing me that it can grow. And as I would sell, as the sales increased, that's what I would increase what I was investing in and things that I was doing. And sometimes that meant pinching and kind of doing things yourself, and doing the logo design myself because I couldn't afford to pay somebody, and being up cutting out the business cards because it was cheaper if you bought them in a sheet, and you do all that kind of stuff because to me it was more important for me to stay in the black and to be growing at the speed that my business was kind of showing me it could. And being afraid of hard work. So if me putting in that work was going to make it grow into this and it not be something that was going to be causing me stress, then that was that's number one for me. I couldn't add the debt of a business on top of the fact that I already have a full-time day job. I'm running this business. I'm sewing till 2 and 3 in the morning still. I have children. I have a house that needs to look like animals don't live there. There's all these very real life things that you also have to take into place as you're also running your business. So I really try to remember that you're doing this because you love it. That's why I'm doing it.
And
it's too much hard work.
I don't see you slowing down. And I don't say that just to pat you on the back, but truly, since I've met you, I've seen you kind of pivot. I've seen you, and not big pivots in your business. I feel like at least since I've known you, which has not been the full 11 years, but the product has been consistent. But like you said, you kind of experiment, you play, you try new things. One of the things that really stands out to me too is that you have people around you who help you. And we talked a little bit about this before we got on, but I'd love for you to say more about I feel like it's a big operation that you run.
It really is.
Anytime you have to leave your home or your studio or your office, it's already an undertaking.
Yeah.
Right? And then you've got product.
And the last year has been super trying. Like you said before, my storefront originally started as a pop-up. So I didn't have any conventions booked for November and December. I said, I own a retail business and I have no conventions that are scheduled during prime holiday shopping. What am I going to do? And I started seeing it. And during the summer, I'm close to Philly and New York. You see pop-up bars, you see pop-up. And I was like, how about a pop-up holiday shop? I'm going to start calling around, seeing if there's somebody that has real estate that would be willing to take a chance on an entrepreneur that would let me in for 2 months. I want a 2-month pop-up lease and see how it goes. At the same exact time, I had also started doing the live shows, which is like my own little version of QVC. When I decided to do these things, I kind of called my friends and I'm like, I'm going to move things into a storefront for 2 months. I get my keys in 2 weeks. We need furniture now. And I'm super lucky that I have one of my best friends refinishes furniture and like a bunch of them like digging around. And they all totally jumped in and were there with me until midnight painting furniture and all like everything. I'm super proud of it. Everything in the store was handmade by us, retouched up by us. They jump in with 2 feet. They kind of make a face like, oh, what is she doing now? But when it comes down to it, they are here. You know, they're the first ones to say what and all right, let's go. Like they're my biggest cheerleaders. I have a very, very strong group of friends that know I need help even when I don't admit that I need help. And they moved me into that pop-up and we ran it for solely with volunteers. I did not pay anybody. So I would work it Saturday and Sunday. My daughter would work the Friday hours, and one of my best friends would work Thursday hours, and I was only open 4 days a week. And then they would come and help me man the live shops. And then they were doing so well. The storefront did so much better than I ever could have imagined. Between that in combination with the live shop, I called them and said, I'm standing in the middle of my new storefront because I expanded to a much bigger space, and they did not even flinch. When are we moving? How much time do we have? So I'm very, very lucky. I have a very strong support group of people that kind of hold me up. Yeah.
So take me to, so in the beginning, you were selling to people at your job and people that you know, but how did you start to define like who your target audience and who your target market really is? Because you have a distinct flair about what you do and like how you do it, right? It's not just any bags and it's not just any prints. So one, maybe just for the audience, you know, to kind of get a feel for how you describe your target market and then how you honed in on that.
Yeah, when I first started, I had no idea what a target market was. It wasn't until the business, probably not until about 3 or 4 years ago, I decided I was going to go and start taking all these business classes where they basically told me about target markets and business plans and what you're doing in 6 months, a year. And I was like, why you name your business something? And I went to all these classes. And like, I basically felt like I had done everything wrong because my business was 6 years old and didn't do any of it like that. But, so yeah, I had no idea even what a target market is. It started kind of like I'm a quick learner. I don't like to fail, and I think that helps. So I originally was just selling by word of mouth. I would go out to eat. Somebody would say, "Where'd you get your bag?" And I'd be like, "Oh, I have extras." And that's really how it was for the first year. And then I started getting friends that started inviting me to go to craft shows and you know what handmade artists do. You go to craft shows, you go to fairs, you go to the flea market, you do all this stuff that I felt like that was the progression of what you were supposed to do. And I would go there and I would be miserable. And I'm like, these people are making faces at my fabric. They don't get they don't get the product at all. I'm lucky if I sell enough to make my table. What am I doing here? This does not make any amount of sense. So, I ended up having a really good month, and I took that money that I made that month and kind of threw it at a Hail Mary, and I did a tattoo convention. And I said it was Philadelphia Tattoo Convention. I'm going to go. And I looked like the amateur, and I had 2 little tables, 1 little rack. I had like nothing set up, but I was like, you know what? People aren't making faces at my stuff, and all of a sudden I realized that that's where I was supposed to be. I would never go to the country fair craft fair. So why am I trying to sell my merchandise to the older women at the country fair, and I'm next to somebody crocheting scarves and this woman that's making jam, and I'm uncomfortable and they're uncomfortable looking at me, and then I go to this tattoo convention and I'm like, look at all these colorful people, it's so awesome, and they loved everything, and I'm like, okay, so I like tattoo conventions, what else do I like? And I started going by, my brand is what I like, I make what I love, the things that I like. So why wouldn't I go to places that I like to sell them? And it seemed so simple, but it was like not the progression of how you're supposed to do it when you're a handmade artist. And then so I started doing that kind of things. I started finding Comic-Cons and, horror conventions and all of this stuff. And all of a sudden, this community of followers and people that were recommending me by word of mouth started forming unto itself. And I started realizing that when your sales start going up, you start realizing you're in the right place and you want to know what else these people are doing.
Yes.
Right? So I'm like, okay, well, this guy happens to like tattoo conventions. What other conventions have you been to? And I started speaking to the people that were coming into my booth. Oh, is this your first convention? What other conventions do you do? And I started kind of doing this whole like census without even realizing that's what I was doing. So,
and market research, right? Like
exactly,
market research, that big terminology
right?
that we use in business, but you want to know what your people wanted.
Yeah, I wanted to know, what, if you're buying from me here, where else are you and where are your friends at? Mm-hmm. So, and it just I started paying attention to, I realized that my business was sort of not only one little niche, it overlapped. So the people that were going to tattoo conventions were also maybe going to bike nights, and then they also liked, the micro group. So I started kind of paying attention as to what other activities maybe this clientele would be following. And since then, my business has grown into so much more than that. But that's originally where it started, and what was really what projected me into a totally different place.
Mm-hmm. So this is going to sound like a silly question now, because I feel like you've got the wind behind you, and like it's like now you're just like flowing in that energy of like continuing to move. But you have a full-time job. You've got a job.
I do.
There are days when like today, we're recording this at night. Most of my other interviews were during the day. This one's at night. You work today, I'm assuming.
Yes.
And you showed up, you're here. And I imagine just seeing you and hearing you and knowing you that you are probably going to go afterward and probably work on something or do something afterward.
Yeah, I'm actually working on a mailing. So I worked on mailing out products from my live shop for 2 hours before our live, and I'll probably be here another 3 or 4 after. But that means if it takes 6 hours to put a mailing out, it means I had a super good weekend. So not complaining.
Okay. And that was going to be my question. Like when you do, though, feel exhausted, like how do you not let yourself off the hook? Right? Because you could say, oh, I don't need to have a super great week this week. I've already got income, or I've done a lot already, right? You've already been to a conference, you've been to a convention, you've got some flow going from that. How do you, what's your like pact with yourself that says, I'm continuing to do this, even though I have an out, so to speak?
Yeah. I always what's more motivating than success, right? So I don't know about you, but as I'm doing better, I want to do even better than that. And I'm like, oh my God, look at, so here it's a big, and just this last year, the entire dynamic of my business has changed since the pop-up, since the live shop. It's kind of like the perfect storm of what happened, and I couldn't have planned it, but that's sort of what it did. But right now I have this whole kind of competition with myself where I post a picture every week of my mailing of me at the post office. And I've been needing a bigger and bigger cart every time, and I'm posting pictures, and I was like, I've filled 8 buckets, I filled 9 buckets. The majority of my business has not been from, even though I do the conventions and I do those shows, the majority of my stuff is online. Girls online keep me very accountable. So they've gotten to the point where they follow me every week, and I've had to kind of set a schedule. Fridays I have an auction, Saturdays I have coffee with Notch, Sundays my show, during the week I post this. So I've had to kind of put a schedule out so that they know what to expect, and I'm not getting 50 million emails. So if I go blank, that's why I took a selfie of us, so I could post later what I'm doing. But if I don't, they start to go, where are the new bags? I start to get little emails. Is everything okay? So the community online kind of keeps me fueled too, that I know that if I don't keep on top of what's going on, social networks has a fickle way of kind of fading off. And before it was an algorithm thing, you had to post all the time. And if you didn't keep up on it, then Facebook was going to make sure nobody saw it. And now I have this super amazing community of people online cheer me on and are awesome. And I want to make sure that I provide them with the things that they want. And I promise them things through the week. And it keeps me very like scheduled. And I have to be consistent doing that because my schedule doesn't let me do anything else.
Yes.
Everybody's like, you have to rest. And I'm like, but I can't because there's more. But I find the fact that my business itself has quadrupled in the last month has the kind of thing where you're almost on a treadmill. Mm-hmm, so if you stop walking, the treadmill's going to bust you on your butt. That's how I feel right now. I feel like I am on the treadmill and I'm kind of having to keep up with it or it's leaving without me.
Oh my gosh. And so you said the word schedule, and this one is so important, especially for people
It's a loose term though, because I don't have it written down.
Well, here, this is going to be my question. I'm like, what? I don't even know if it's a secret, but managing a family, a home, a business, a full-time job, and you do mail orders. So you have to you've got to work in a timing, right? Like people order, they want their things in a timely fashion, and you're sewing. You're still sewing. I mean, you're not farming all of that out. So
no.
What does it look like to get order in all these areas to make these trains run on time?
They call it my organized chaos. So it makes sense to me, but it might not necessarily make sense to everybody else. And then once they get in, they're like, okay, there is like this sort of like flow to what's going on, and there really is. And because now the majority of my business is run off of Facebook, there is a schedule as to when and it's a loose schedule, but is that I know that I have to post a handful of things every day. If I skip today, I have to make sure that I post a notice. And I've been doing announcements because they keep me on track, because if I announce it, now I'm accountable. So now I have to make sure that I already announced I'm doing that, so now you have to stay on top of it. I also share a huge part of my journey with everybody that's online, so they know what's going on. So, right now there's a lot going on behind the scenes, and that will sometimes slow things down for me. And I'm very, very honest about what's going on and what's happening because I feel like it's part of it. They could go to Target and Walmart and buy a bag. And yes, my stuff is limited edition. It's an edgier fabric. But why are they choosing to not only support my small business and buy their bags from me, but tune in every single week and watch segments and watch my live shows and kind of want to see that? It's because I make them part of that journey of what's going on, and I'm super honest about it. Sometimes it's hard and sometimes it sucks, and I'm tired, and I slept 3 hours today, and I fell asleep and didn't send out invoices, and there are days where I drop the ball, but then I'm honest about that, and then I just pick it up and keep going. Last week was a rougher week. Instead, I felt like I was juggling and everything just sort of fell on my feet, and so this week I'm picking it back up and I'm, going, and it's not always super smooth, but as they say, a step's a step. I try to remember that, and I try to do it justice. I mean, this last year, I sit back and I can't even believe this last year is happening to me. It's that sort of a surreal thing that it's gotten so big so fast that I can't even believe that, this is this thing that I grew, and then now all of a sudden, I do a live show on Sunday and there's over 1,000 views, and I'm still like, oh my God, but I also share that with everybody online. This is amazing, this is great, and I'm this person that started sewing in their home. How crazy is that?
And making crooked bags.
And making crooked bags. Isn't that nuts? I was at the pharmacy today and I got recognized by some woman that wouldn't even look at me and was like, I watch your live show every Sunday. And I was like, it's really, really cool. Who would think that would happen? And I'm a handmade artist, and I make stuff and people buy it. And how cool is that?
And they keep buying it. And they
keep buying it. So
and tuning into you. Wow. Okay. So, okay. One of the things, and we'll kind of wrap after this one, but one of the things I remember when we met, maybe it's been about 3 years or so ago now, I was doing a pitch competition and you'd already won like the year before. And honestly, I was just drawn to you because of your personal style. I just love when people are creative and they are themselves. That to me is like the most attractive thing ever, right? And I remember us talking, and it was really brief. It was a lot going on that day. And one of the things that stood out to me is you said, you have to know your numbers. You have to know what your numbers are. And you gave the example, because at that time, I think you didn't have the bus yet, or you were trying to get the bus to a convention. Mm-hmm. And you said, if someone were to ask me right now how much money I needed to get that bus to the convention, I could tell you like down to the dollar. Mm-hmm. And as someone new in business and kind of overwhelmed by the components of it, that for me just rang true as like strong and like in command of what you do. So just taking it to the numbers, like, I know it sounds obvious because we're in business and we're in business to make money, but some people are also in it because they just enjoy it, right? Right. How important is it to you with all the activity that you have going on to keep track of the numbers?
For me, also, the numbers right now are these. Like I said, the business in the last year has taken this sort of catapult. Like I jumped on a spring. So online has been absolutely incredible. So the numbers that I'm seeing now aren't necessarily the goals that I had like 3 months ago, 6 months ago. So at this point, I'm trying not to put my own kind of stopper on this is what my goals are going to be, because if that was the case, I never would have hit what I'm doing now. So for me, it's always the numbers of what I need in order to get to my next goal. Like what is going to end up making my life better and what is going to end up making it easier for me. Now that I'm in a brick and mortar and I also had to change what that meant because I'm in a location where there's almost zero street traffic. So if I went by numbers so you have to change your numbers so that they're relevant to you. You can't all of a sudden open up some entrepreneurial book and they're like, these are the numbers and this is what you have to be making and this is the percentage that you need to do, because it has to be relevant to what it is you're doing. And a lot of the times when I went to these talks and these business classes, and I felt like they always said stuff that was so irrelevant to me. And that's even still applies now. Right now, I have a storefront that everybody calls a speakeasy. Because if you didn't know it was here, you wouldn't be able to find it. Okay, it's in the back, and it is a full storefront. But it also houses, we call it headquarters. It houses my office. It's a studio. It also is my storage. So this made it possible for me to move it out of my home. Okay. So my numbers were a normal storefront. My numbers would be how many people were coming in, how many of those people walking in translate into sales, those numbers don't apply to me, because to me, everything is online. It's a way for the girls to be able to come here and pick their items up. The girls that follow me online know where to find me. So I think it's more important to gauge your numbers on how it's relevant to your own business. Mm-hmm. And I also focus on the numbers as my goals. What do I need that's going to make my life easier? So a lot of the times when I talk to people, you need to know if somebody's going to invest in you, what you would spend that money on. For me, it's stress level. So as a brick and mortar, you have these bills that you didn't have as a homemade business. You were running it out of your house. Sure. You're doing it online. So for me, my numbers was, what do I need to do in order to get my rent paid? So it's 3 months in advance. So one of those store owners, that's like, I need to make this many sales in order to pay my rent. To me, that was like going to stifle everything that was about my business, is that it was going to put in a place where what I did right now was going to affect whether or not I was able to take a step this month. So those are the numbers that are important to me. So I feel like it's subjective as to what your numbers are going to mean to you. Maybe you're somebody that wants to quit your job and your numbers mean how much do I need to make in order to cover that. For me, my numbers are, I want to stay ahead of it. What am I going to have to do in order to do this another cool event that I haven't been able to do? Or in order to launch a new bag this summer, my focus was, what do I need to do in order to commission out 2 new bag styles by Christmas? That was my goal. And I hit both of those numbers before the end of the summer, which is amazing. So yay!
I love it.
Small business
win.
But Yeah, I feel like not only is it about, like, I feel like they always have that formula that you have to kind of fill out when you go to a business class of what your numbers are supposed to be, and you take this and you divide it by that. And I feel like it just has to be so much more subjective, because what you want out of your business is very different from what I would want from mine. So, yeah.
So given that, to help wrap us up, what are 2 pieces of advice that you have for people who are right now either just beginning or kind of on that cusp of preparation to begin a business?
Oh, I don't know if I'm the best to give that advice, but I don't know. I feel like it's so much hard work. You have to find something that you absolutely are willing to love with everything, because it's a lot of hard work. I feel like a lot of people go into it. Like, I have a lot of people that come up and they're like, oh, well, you were like a homegrown business. I want to make extra money, so I'm going to start a business. And I always laugh. I'm like, if you're doing this to make extra money, you have lost your mind, because it takes a lot of freaking work and years. But so I feel like you have to love it, and it has to be something that you're willing to sacrifice for, and you have to make that sort of, you're like, oh, well, this would be cool if I did that. I feel like you have to really soul search if that's something that you're willing to give up. Because you know what? It's Friday night at 10 o'clock. This is where I am. Right now it's almost 8 o'clock and we're on the phone with these goofy little headphones on, because this right now is what's important, where other people might be doing something. So you have to kind of, if you're going to be doing it, it has to be something that you can put 100% into, because it's the only way it's going to work. And you have to learn how to bob and weave. You have to learn how to rebound. So your path might not be the path that other people are doing. And if it doesn't work out that way, that's okay. You know what? Maybe go to a tattoo convention. Maybe buy a bus. Yes. So if it doesn't work, find your own way for it to work. I mean, I don't look like the typical entrepreneur. I would go to those. I went to the New York Business Summit, and I stood out like a sore thumb and listened to everybody. And I didn't fit into what that is. And that's okay. You don't have to fit into what that is, but your business needs to fit whatever it is that you want it to be doing, or it's not going to go anywhere anyway. Awesome. Did that answer? Did that tap
Yes, it does. That was awesome. Good. That was very good. So tell our listeners where they can find you, and maybe even a little bit about what's next, or what you have going on right now that they can kind of tap into and see and touch and feel.
Right now, the majority of the business is on Facebook. So you can find me on Top Notch by Design on Facebook. The major place is our group, which is Top Notch Facebook Shop. Top Notch Facebook Shop has taken on a life of its own. It's this network of really amazing people that interact with each other, and they share things, and they've actually become friends out of there. But basically what it is, it's a shopping page. It is. It's a page about, my journey, what I'm doing. I go live every Sunday, and it's basically my version of QVC, and you get to see everything that I have that's brand new that week. You get dibs on it before it goes anywhere. But so Top Notch Facebook Shop is the big deal. I have Instagram. I'm terrible at it. I need a team. The social network I'm working on, I need a Twitter. I know, but no, Facebook's usually the easiest way. I am revamping my website in time for the holidays. It was never a priority, but now with the shop online being so big, it kind of has to take a front seat. So everything's Top Notch by Design. The website, the Instagram, Facebook.
Yay! Thank you so much.
Thank you for having
so
me.
Much fun.
Oh, good. I had a good time too.
Thank you for joining Ready to Launch with me, Fatima Williams, and our inspiring guests. I'm committed to helping you turn this inspirational information into actionable advice. So I created the Ready to Launch syllabus. To get the most out of your listening time, go to fatimawilliams.com/launch and download my free Ready to Launch syllabus today. And as always, I'd love to hear your comments and takeaways from this session. What are you ready to launch, and what's your next step? Join the conversation on Facebook or follow me on Instagram at Fatima PhD. Let's get ready to launch.